This week ethics video, we're going to go over chapter 13 and chapter 14. First is the case of ethics in emerging journalism, and also when privacy outweighs the public's right to know. So something that stood out in chapter 13's chapter reading was basically how becoming friends with your sources. So I think you should become friends with your sources because it'll help you be able to get more information out your sources, help you, basically make them more comfortable. And it really helps like with smaller figures when you're doing smaller news sources, like, high school sports, becoming friends with the coaches and everything. But it won't work for like bigger people like the president stuff. It's hard to become friends with the president. It's hard to get close to them. Something else that stood out in chapter 13 was anonymity. Anonymity is basically important because anonymity is important when you're dealing with dangerous cases. So when you're working on like trying to break down a meth lab or a drug bust or anything that has to deal with crime, you staying more anonymous with your sources and stuff, it will help you to keep your sources safe when you're dealing with that type of stuff. So it always is important for you to make sure all your sources are staying anonymous. In chapter 14, when privacy outweighs what they call it. My bad. But when privacy outweighs the public's right to know, that's important when you're dealing with another cases like when you're breaking down stuff that happens in the government. So you have to keep a lot of those things private in those situations. So if it's like a corrupt government official, the public's right to know is important. But before you do anything, you need to make sure you have all the right facts. Because when you're doing something like trying to break down a corrupt government office, like the housing department, let's say they're stealing homes from people on Section 8 and stuff, you gotta make sure all your facts are right and your sources are correct. Because when you do publish that story and it's wrong, that's your career right there. And if you do publish that story and it's right, you're still putting your head at a stake with a lot of government officials that are doing that stuff. So you gotta always make sure that you keep everything intact with those stories and make sure that those stories are kind of kept to the vest. Even though it's the public's right to know, you gotta make sure everything is kept to the vest. And basically what I learned through this chapter, these two chapters were basically privacy and how to deal with sources. So how to make sure you get the best information out of your sources, making your sources comfortable, while also making them comfortable by protecting their identity and how they feel with public knowing everything that they did. And that's my ethics videos for this week.